The tears were flowing. I was keeping it together on the outside as far as like not crying and throwing up, and you know, just like you know, the ugly cry. Hey, what's up? It's Meezy, and today is day 1 of Vlogmas. Yes, it is that time of year again, and I'm just for the next month, the month of December, I'm gonna be posting a whole bunch of videos about machine learning, data science, vlogs, software engineering in general, just everything you could imagine. It's the holidays, I'm excited, and it's been a long time since I could just freely make videos because of grad school and boot camp. So here we go, I'm so ready. So day 1 of Vlogmas, we are going to kick it off with a story time about how I got my job at Microsoft. Now, people ask me this question a lot, and I always thought I was answering it by like telling them how I studied and what I studied and what kind of skills they needed and interview tips, resume tips, all of that. But it turns out people actually want to know like the tea behind how I got my job, and I think it's a pretty cool story. So here we go. Just a couple things to preface it. I was interviewing in late 2019, early 2020, so Miss Rona was not a thing yet. And then what else? Oh, I was already a software engineer. Okay, so I went, if this is your first time here, I got my degree in computer science, graduated in 2017, started working at a big insurance company as a software engineer, and then was ready to go. I had a terrible time there, so I was ready to go, and I think that's all you need to know. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's October 2019 in Orlando, Florida, and I am at my first ever Grace Hopper conference. My company had paid for me to go, but I did not care. I had resumes and I was ready. I was looking for anybody who was willing to give me a chance to talk to them and tell them I had skills. I went to a lot of sessions at Grace Hopper, but I also went to a lot of companies' events, because at conferences, companies will not only come to the conference and look for candidates, but they will also sponsor events outside of the conference that are much smaller, more intimate, and so you can really get some one-on-one time with the employees there, so you can decide if you want to work there, you know, get an interview, whatever it is. And so at Grace Hopper, I was doing all of that, and it also happened to be hosted by Morgan DeBon. I hope I'm saying her name right, but she is a co-founder of Afrotech, or a co-founder of Blavity, who hosts Afrotech. And so on the last day of the Grace Hopper conference, she was like, oh, you know, I've had such a great time here. I want to give away 10 tickets to Afrotech, enter the raffle, see if you win, hopefully we see you there. I'm like, bet. So I entered a raffle, 100% not expecting to win. Fast forward, I do win. And so they gave me a free ticket, but I had to give my own airfare and my own, my own housing. And so Grace Hopper, let's just say Grace Hopper was on the 5th, Afrotech was on the 15th. So it was a very short turnaround time for me to figure out how I was gonna get enough time off, because time off was very strict at the place where I was working. Get the money for a hotel and a flight. Now, I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, so it was a cross-country flight that was gonna be like $500. And then also I needed a hotel. First of all the hotels in Afrotech is hosted in Oakland, and so all the hotels were already sold out by that point, and the ones that weren't sold out were like $500 a night, and so I definitely could not afford that. And so I ended up crowdfunding. And you might be thinking, well, you were already an engineer, didn't you have enough money? No, I didn't have enough money. One, I did not get paid a lot. A lot of people believe the myth that all engineers make 6 figures as soon as they graduate, as soon as they get out of school. Not true. It's honestly like not too many people that are making that much money. Don't get me wrong, most software engineers do make good money, but you don't necessarily make 6 figures. And it's a lot more common than what people think. Okay, and so, and I had just moved, and if you want to see my old apartment, there's a video of that as well. I'm gonna plug all my videos throughout the month. But I just moved into an apartment where I had to pay basically 3 months of rent to move in, clear out my savings for the most part, so I had no money. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to crowdfund this. And so I sent out a tweet. I was like, hey, listen, I need to go to Afrotech. If you can give any money, please help me out. And thankfully 2 people helped me out. One person was anonymous, and I really wish I could find that person because they really don't realize how much of an impact they had on my life. To them, it was probably just $300, but to me, that was like, oh my God, like I'm actually going. And then somebody else donated $200 to me, and so I was up to $500. I know who that person was, and I was able to thank them. And then one of my friends and my old bosses donated to me as well. So I didn't hit my goal of like $800, but I did hit $500. I had a friend that was going to Berkeley at the time, and he let me stay with him. And so I was off. I got my flight. I asked my managers, since y'all aren't paying for it, can y'all at least let me take the time off without having to use PTO. My PTO was extra precious back then because I didn't live near my family, so I was always traveling for that. So I got it all together and I was able to go to Afrotech. And so Afrotech was about the same situation as Grace Hopper, where I was definitely going, looking for jobs, and signed up for events outside of the conference so that I could have those intimate settings and meet a lot of people and network. And so the 2 most memorable events that I signed up for were a Microsoft event and then a Spotify event. The Spotify event was at a bar, and the Microsoft event was on a boat. Very nice, very classy. I was so shook. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of the story. All right, so the Spotify and the Microsoft event were on the same night. Ever since I had been at the conference, I hadn't really had a lot of time to hang out with my friend. And like we were BFFs. Like we have been BFFs since high school, since we were like 13. So I was sad that I was in the same place as him and couldn't hang out with him. So I invited him to come with me to the Spotify event. And at these events, sometimes they'll give you a +1. Other times, it's kind of like a free range for you to go, but the more open the event is, that's how you know how fancy it's gonna be. Because if they just let anybody in, then it's probably not gonna be that much free stuff there. And then, it kind of just gets better the more exclusive it is. And so he was able to sign up because you don't have to go to the conference to be able to go to most of these events. They just want to be able to meet candidates. So, and he was getting his PhD in like something electronic. I could never explain it. It's very much above my pay grade. Anyways, we both go over to the Spotify event together. We get to the bar, and normally when you go to these events, they'll have free food and alcohol, but it'll be like a standard selection of things. But not here. Spotify said, run up the tab, baby. You can get whatever you want. It's open bar. It says open bar? I ordered a carafe of champagne because what else was I supposed to do? Sure did, yeah. And so I drank that. My friend had a drink, and we had some food, and we just had a good time. And so then time was ticking, going on, and I was like, oh man, it's time for me to go to the Microsoft event. But we were having so much fun. I was like, oh, I don't know, I'll figure it out. I can talk to him later. I'll figure it out. I don't have to go. And he was like, no, you need to go. You need to go. You need to go network. You might meet Bill Gates. Just being funny. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Let's go. So he took me there. This one was very exclusive, so I had to go by myself. And thankfully, I'd already met some people around the conference, so I did have at least some people to talk to. So I'm at the event. The executives that are on the boat with us get up, talk about, Microsoft stuff, diversity at Microsoft, the kind of people they want on their teams, because most people that were there were hiring. Okay, so they make their announcements. There's more food and drinks, so I get a couple of glasses of champagne. I'm walking around, I'm filming, I'm having a great time. And so once I finished filming, I'm just like kind of standing around, just looking around, didn't know what to do. And I see this other lady doing the same thing. Now, I saw her and I immediately knew she worked at Microsoft because she just didn't have that look of desperation that the rest of us did, And so I knew she worked there. She was like, oh, do you want to go have a chat downstairs? Perfect, let's go do it. And so let me tell you, remember that I am a carafe and 2 glasses of champagne deep. And so we started talking or whatever, and I remember introducing myself to her. There was a conversation in the middle of that. At the end of it, she asked me my name again, wrote it down on her phone in my email, and she said, okay, I'll make sure I reach out to you. Now, I'm just thinking she's being nice, because that's what people do, you know what I'm saying? Especially considering the fact that I could not remember that conversation. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. If something comes out of it, great. If it doesn't, at least I know a recruiter will reach out to me because I was on the boat. Fast fast forward to me, I'm at home now, and I actually get an email from her, and it's CC'd with a recruiter, and she's like, oh, can you please like vet this person, basically. So sometimes you'll have a chat with like a manager or something before you actually enter the real interview process. And so she sent that email. I was shook that she even sent it. A manager reached out to me. We talked for a little bit, and then that was cool. I was like, okay. And then I talked to somebody else on the team, and we had a little chat, and I was like, okay, cool. So that means they actually want to talk to me. And then I ended up scheduling, oh no, that's not what happened. So after the chat with the second person on the team, they sent me a coding assessment. And if you've never done one before, it'll typically be through like HackerRank or Codely, or there's so many websites where you can send people coding assessments. And it wasn't too crazy. I think I talk about it in my video. But it was 3 questions. I had like an hour to do it, and so I banged it out, sent it back over to them, and they were like, okay, cool, we want to bring you in for a final interview. I'm like, oh my gosh, not y'all actually like me. So then I fly out for my interview. So if you don't know, in the before times, you used to get flown out, they would get you a hotel, they would pay for all your food. So even if you got rejected, you still had a nice little weekend. And so, yeah, I flew out there and I had my interview. I'm all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I get to my interview, and my first interviewer is pretty cool. He's a principal engineer, and he asked me to write the code to build an elevator. I started writing it. We're talking through the process. I realized I don't know how an elevator works, so he has to explain that to me. It's a lot more mechanics than I'd ever thought about in my life. But anyways, as we're writing, you know, time is going on, and then at some point he's like, okay, well, that's all we have time for. And I'm like, I've probably written like 4 or 5 functionalities of an elevator, and immediately my brain was like, oh, you fucked up. Like, it's over for you. Like, you're done. You're done. And so I started bawling. Okay, not bawling, not literally bawling, but I mean, the tears were flowing. I was keeping it together on the outside as far as like not crying and throwing up, and you know, just like, you know, the ugly cry. I wasn't doing that one, but the tears were definitely flowing, and they would not stop. Then my eyes got irritated because I tried to scratch it and got mascara in my eye. It was a whole mess. But he was very nice. He was like, oh no, like, don't cry. Like, we have these kind of, you know, even if you would have written every line of code possible for an elevator, I would have thrown something else at you, and it would have just kept expanding. Like, you're fine, everything is okay. It's not a big deal, you know. It's just how the interview goes. And I'm like, okay. And so we closed out the interview. He was really cool. I go back to the lobby and wait for my next interview. In my mind, though, even though he was really nice about it, I'm like, oh, it's over for me. Like, I've bombed this. I'm not getting this job. And so while I was sitting in the lobby, after I went to the bathroom and got myself together, I was sitting in the lobby waiting for the next person to come get me for my interview. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have fun now. I'm gonna be my best self, try to impress them, but if I don't, it's fine. And I'm probably not getting the job anyway, so I might as well, you know, just relax and have a good time. So I have 2 more interviews that day, and like a tentative interview. So they schedule like 4 interviews for you. The last slot, you don't know if you're gonna go, and what I had read at the time, and I still don't know if this is true, so don't take my word for it, this is just what I've read on the internet, is that if you make it to that last interview, then you did really good and you're probably gonna get hired, because that's the interview with the hiring manager. And so I did not expect to have that interview that day, even though, you know, they told me to prepare for it. After the first interview, I was just like, there's no way. So I get through those 2 interviews, I go back to the lobby, I'm thinking she's gonna be like, okay, have a nice day. Oh, they have little receptionists at the buildings, and she was the nicest lady ever. If you ever see this video, my tweets, please reach out to me. She was so nice. And I remember when I first walked in, she complimented my outfit and my hair and everything. And then after my first interview, she was like, how did it go? She was like really invested. She was like, well, you know what? I would hire you just based off your outfit. I will never forget you, Studio C receptionist. Okay, back to the story. So she didn't tell me to leave. She was like, okay, well, you have 1 more, so just wait for that person to get you. I'm like, oh my God, they must really rock with me. Or I'm like, either that or they're just being really nice. So I do the last interview. I meet with that person. It's a really good interview. I get walked out. It's time for me to go home. And then, you know, I get back to the hotel expecting to like turn up because at least I did the interview, and I just went straight to sleep. I mean, I was exhausted. So anyways, I get back home, and about a week after I had done my initial interview, I got a call from a recruiter, and he was like, oh, we want to make you an offer. And I'm like, oh my God. And so, and then we started negotiations, and that took about a week as well. Offer is finalized. And then I started about, probably about 2 months after I accepted my offer. And then I just took like a 1 month break between my last job and the Microsoft job. So there it is, and that's my story. Moral of the story is, you know, be yourself and persevere, because I was myself, my tipsy self, and that's how I got the interview. And then I thought I bombed it, but I persevered. Instead of saying I'm just gonna go home, that was embarrassing, I persevered, and I got the job. So, you know, we all had a good time, and here I am now, you know. And for the record, I'm doing very well. For anybody who was gonna hate on me in the comments, try to call me a diversity hire, I'm doing very well, okay? I actually got promoted twice this year, and I will talk about that in another video. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the vlogmas videos, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.